Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name's Han and I'm a professional embroidery artist, and today I'm going to be sharing with you the 7 essentials that you need if you want to start embroidering your own shoes. So number 1, of course, you are going to need a pair of shoes. I embroider exclusively on canvas type shoes and I recommend that you do the same. Here I have a pair of Converse All-Stars. I embroider onto these kinds of shoes on a daily basis. And if you have a pair of these and you're thinking about getting into shoe embroidery, I would definitely recommend starting on a pair like this. The material isn't too thick, so the needle can usually work through it quite easily, and it's going to be easy on your fingers, especially for your first try. Here I have a pair of Chuck Taylor 70s that I hand embroidered. I know this style is super popular because of how the logo looks, and while I agree they do look super cool, it is important that you know that this fabric is a lot thicker than on the regular Chuck All-Stars. I'd say it takes me almost double the amount of time to embroider the exact same design on these shoes as opposed to the Chuck All-Stars. The fabric is thicker, so it's harder for the needle to travel through, and it ends up just taking a lot more time than on a shoe with thinner fabric. Another shoe that I embroider onto almost every day is the low top Vans Authentics. These shoes take embroidery so well. The fabric does not cling to the needle as it travels through, and the little bit of space right here is just perfect for a small design, or in this case, a little doggy's face. Look how cute she is. I would caution you against some styles of Vans. I know some of the high top designs have different fabric on the insides of the shoes, and some parts of the shoes can be thicker than others with some kind of cushioning around the ankles. It'll be really hard for you to get the needle through those areas. So I would say just stick to the Vans Authentics if you're going to go with Vans for your first shoe embroidery project. Shoes that I would not recommend for your shoe embroidery project include leather shoes. Leather is typically quite thick and it's quite hard for the needle to travel through the fabric. And as someone who has embroidered onto the leather shoes that Converse makes, I can tell you that the fabric just doesn't take embroidery very well. It bunches and it cracks, and the embroidery just does not sit very well on the material. For this same reason, I would recommend you steer clear of Air Force Ones. I have tried embroidering onto those and it just does not work. The shoes themselves are too thick and the leather material on the outside does not take the art form very well. I would also steer clear of leather boots like Doc Martens, unless you have the Chelsea boot style with the elastic fabric near the ankle. You can always embroider onto that elastic fabric, but do keep in mind that sometimes that stretches when you put the shoe on and it can ruin the design. So number 2 on my shoe embroidery essentials list would have to be the thread. As I've stated in previous videos, I do use a lot of DMC embroidery thread. However, I will always encourage you to go for the best bang for your buck option, especially when you're just getting into a new craft. Now, you might only be planning to embroider something super simple onto your shoes like a name or a date, in which case you might only need one color of thread. However, if you're going for a more detailed design, then it might benefit you to get a variety pack of thread. If you are looking for a selection of embroidery thread with a wide variety of colors, there are a couple of brands that I would recommend and they are available on Amazon. I'm going to have them linked in the description below. I find some of the names a little bit hard to pronounce, so it's kind of easier to just link them. But you can find some really good deals on some really good quality cheap thread out there. So while I do love DMC thread and I think that the quality is amazing, I think if you're just getting into the craft, you can definitely go ahead and grab a cheaper variety pack that will stretch to at least 6 or 7 pairs of shoes. The third item on my essentials list is going to be needles. One of the questions I get asked most on social media is, what kind of embroidery needles do you use? People tend to have a lot of issues with their needles breaking when they first start shoe embroidery. I think it's a common misconception that people that embroider shoes must use a different, more sturdy kind of embroidery needle, which isn't the case. I use regular DMC embroidery needles. I actually include these exact needles in the shoe embroidery kits that I sell, but the truth is you can use any kind of embroidery needle when you are embroidering on shoes. If you're having issues with your needles breaking, it's probably due to you pulling the needle through the shoe fabric at a strange angle and straining the shaft of the needle. When you're bringing that needle through the shoe, you want to make sure you're pulling it up cleanly and not bending the needle in any way. I think when you're just starting out with shoe embroidery, it's easier to use a slightly longer needle so that it's easier to grab and pull through the shoe when you're making a stitch. But just keep in mind, if you're making smaller, dainty stitches that you want to look really precise and clean, use a needle with a smaller eyelet, which is the hole at the top of the needle that the thread travels through, and that will keep your stitches really neat and tidy. Embroidery needles can be grabbed at any craft store. I get mine off of Amazon, but if you need more of a visual for the eyelet size, I would say maybe go and grab some in person from a craft store. Okay, number 4 on the essentials list is going to be finger protectors. I like to use the silicone kind because they feel like an extension of my finger. I have tried like metal thimbles before in the past, but they're quite clunky and I tend to work quite quickly, and these never get in my way. They fit on the end of the finger like this, and they come in a bunch of super fun colors. As you can see, the one that I have on is a little bit different from the ones in this pouch here, and they come in a bunch of different sizes. So if you also want to wear them on this finger and on your thumb, you can. I've been embroidering since I was about 8 years old, but I've been been embroidering shoes for about 5 years now, and only within the last year or so have I started wearing these. And when I tell you I wish I had been wearing these from the beginning, these make it so much easier to pull the needle up through the shoe. They give you an extra bit of grip and an extra bit of protection, because shoe embroidery is a lot more strenuous on your hands than regular embroidery, since you're pulling the needle and thread up through a fabric that's much thicker than regular embroidery linen, let's say. So I cannot recommend these enough. I even include them in my shoe embroidery kits because to me they are truly an essential for this craft. Okay, so the next 3 essentials on my list are kind of interchangeable. So if you choose to go with number 5, then you don't need to go with number 6 and 7, if that makes sense. So at number 5, I have this magic embroidery pen. I don't tend to use this on the shoes that I embroider because I'm more of a freehand shoe embroidery artist, and almost all of my designs I kind of have memorized, but for a beginner, this pen would be invaluable. So with the blue side, you can sketch out your design onto your shoe, embroider over it, then spray that area with a little bit of water and the pen will disappear. I love this because it's super forgiving. Let's say you mess up the sketch, it doesn't matter. You can just spray it with some water and it's gone. The purple side is a little bit different. This ink just disappears when it's exposed to slightly warmer air. I do prefer the blue side when I'm teaching beginners because shoe embroidery can take quite a bit of time, especially if you're just getting into the craft. And imagine sketching out the entire design and going back to embroider it 2 days later and it has disappeared. So I like the control that the blue end gives you, even though the purple end can be super helpful in some instances. So this is definitely an essential if you are more artistic, if you have some designs in mind that you kind of just want to sketch out onto the shoe. But the next 2 options go hand in hand and you won't need this pen if you go with those 2. So number 6 on my list is fabric solvy water soluble paper. Say that 10 times fast. I'm actually just waiting for a shipment to come in right now, so I don't have any to show you in the flesh. But basically this is adhesive paper that you can print a design onto, cut it out and then stick it onto your shoe. You'll then stitch over it following your design, and once you're done, you submerge that design in water and the paper dissolves, leaving you with your finished design and no trace of the sticker that was once there. I use this fabric solvy in my own shoe embroidery kits and I can't recommend it enough. It's super easy to use. You do need an inkjet printer to print onto it. I've got a regular HP inkjet printer and it works just fine with the paper. The only thing I would say about this method is you have to make sure you get rid of all of the fabric solvy paper with enough water, but you don't want to totally drench the shoe because that can affect the longevity of the shoe, and you've just spent hours and hours embroidering it. You don't want the shoe itself to fall apart. I do have tutorials on my channel for how to use this fabric solvy paper effectively. It's really crucial to just take your time with the process. It can take 15 to 20 minutes to totally get the paper to dissolve, but then all you've got to do is just let the shoes dry overnight and you have a finished pair of hand embroidered shoes. The last essential on my list ties directly into number 6. So if you are planning on using the fabric solvy method to transfer your design onto the shoes, you're going to need some kind of software to sketch and map out that design before printing it off. I use Procreate on my iPad and I can't recommend it enough. It's super easy to just select the A4 option and then I'm able to plan out my shoe embroidery kit designs with the correct measurements and the size of the sheet of the fabric solvy in mind, because the fabric solvy paper does come in A4 sizes, so you're able to print them. There are multiple options for softwares like this. I know some people use Canva because it's free, and there are other kinds of software that are available on desktops if you don't have a tablet, but I just find it super easy to use my Apple Pencil on my iPad and sketch out my designs and then print them off. Procreate also gives me the option to print directly from the app, so I don't have to mess with my finished design or anything once I'm done. I can print it directly from Procreate, grab it from the printer, cut it out and stick it onto my shoes. So that is my list of 7 essentials you'll need if you are getting into shoe embroidery. If you enjoyed this video, please leave me a like, and if you're into hand embroidery tutorials and crafty little videos, then maybe subscribe to my channel. I have lots of fun tutorials planned as well as crafty videos in the works, and I'm super excited to share them all with you. Thanks so much for watching if you've made it this far, and I will see you in my next video.